Folks, it's wonderful to see all of you. Thanks for joining us. As you are slithering into the room, you're probably going to notice that you'll get a notification asking you if you want to be upgraded to a panelist in this webinar, in this workshop. It's not a trick. It's not a surprise. It just means that you'll have the ability, if you want to have a little bit more functionality in the chat. And also, if you would want to come off mute or even turn your camera on, it allows you to have those choices. There is no expectation or mandate. You're welcome to participate as actively or passively as you want to, but just know you'll get a notification that gives you the option of becoming a panelist. It just means that you have some more choices with regards to participation if you would like. There is no pressure whatsoever. We'll wait about another 30 seconds or so. It's great to have all of you. I'll introduce myself a little bit more in a moment. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Leanne. Both of us are on the CodeHS team as PD specialists. Leanne's here supporting me, so you're not going to hear too much from her, but I'll be taking you through the next kind of 88 minutes of getting started with web design. So it's wonderful to have you here. I also know that, assuming all of you are teachers, that you are giving us your precious time during your valuable vacation, joining us as well. So I just want to acknowledge that and give you a shout out and hope that you're having a wonderful summer. I hope you're having a wonderful summer and being good to yourselves. Last thing I'll say just before we get going again, if you didn't hear me, you may get a little pop-up window. You should get one that gives you a notification asking you if you would like to be upgraded to panelist. I suggest just click yes. It gives you more functionality. Oh, did I not change the access of the slides? William, thanks for letting me know. Carla, great.
I got it.
Tanya, thanks very much. This is why Leanne is on support, and this is why she's a senior to me, because she remembers these things. But we'll give you access to the slides in a moment. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was paying attention, obviously. But folks, last thing, just to remind you, you did get a notification saying that you are able to upgrade to a panelist. I would suggest yes. It just gives you more functionality in the chat. And if needs be, it allows you to come off mute and turn your camera on. You're not expected or obliged to do any of those things. Like I said, being a teacher on your summer break and joining us is more than a requirement. Crystal, you'll get that notification as well. So completely, you do you and enjoy. Just thank you so much for being here. Folks, but we will get going because we have a lot to get through. I will try and get through all the content for this webinar, but just a bit of a heads up, you will have access to all of the resources that are in front of you. Other thing I'm just going to share in the chat right now, I will share this periodically, but all of the resources and links that you need, I am going to go through all of them, but they're attached to the slide deck that you should now have access to. Thanks for giving us a heads up for that, William and Tanya. So everything is there. That's an extra resource. You also will have access to this recording. This webinar with all our webinars and workshops that we do is also added to our CodeHS YouTube channel. That'll be there in the next few days. So just know that these resources are available to all of you, everything that we do. Cool. So I mentioned my name is Jonathan. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm one of the CodeHS team members, part of the PD team. So our I guess our job here is to run various different trainings. This is one of them, and I will make sure that hopefully that this is as effective as possible. I used to, in fact, my background is as an English teacher, English and history, always high school. I never was brave enough to teach anything elementary. And I only went to start teaching computer science later on in my career. I went over the dark side and worked as a software engineer for a few years before joining the team at CodeHS as well. So, great. Cool. If there are, Leanne, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? I know that you're going to kind of be floating around in the background, but just so people do know who you are, it would be great for you to say hi.
Sorry.
So I caught you at a perfect time there. I'm sorry.
I was coughing right before that, and I felt like I couldn't talk. I am Leanne Grant, and I'm also a PD specialist here at CodeHS. I was a computer science teacher for 10 years before coming to CodeHS. Hi, Carla. I recognize actually quite a few names that are on this list, so thank you guys for coming today.
Cool, folks. So, yeah, if you want to just drop and say hi in the chat, you're welcome to do that. So you do you. It's good to see you've got some people from Illinois. I'm also based in Chicago as well. Crystal, thank you very much for giving us a heads up as how you're planning on adapting this particular course as well. That's very helpful. And any feedback that you have about how that's going would be great as well. So, folks, again, we've got 90 minutes or just under 90 minutes to get through everything. Hopefully, we will get through all the content I planned, but that depends on our pacing, questions that come up, etc. So first of all, with regards to web design, we are going to look at the course itself from a kind of big picture, higher order overview, and think about what that's going to look like for the course of its entirety throughout your school year. I'm going to make the assumption that you are either planning on teaching this course or at least using it in some way. Alternatively, you might be an admin of some kind and you're overseeing someone who might do this course too, or you're just interested to see what's coming up. So that's the kind of approach we'll take. We'll then have a look at some of the more specific lessons, just to kind of see the CodeHS format, our platform, in case you're not familiar with it. I'll talk about a few suggestions as to how you can use the resources available to you. We'll then after that also have a look at one of the big parts of our web design course, and that's being for you and your students to be able to actually publish to the web. That's integrated into the course itself, but a really, really cool feature. And then lastly, as we finish off, we'll hop around and have a look at some other features at the start of the course as well. And then we'll finish up with some course customization, because that's also one of the powerful, I think, cool things about our platform is that the course that you create, you can customize completely to the needs of both you and a teacher and the student population that you have. And we'll have a look at some of those things. Hopefully we'll get through everything too. Okay, so a couple of things with regards to your participation. You are welcome to do whatever you want to. You should have received a notification offering you to participate as a panelist. If you would like to select that when you see it, it's not going to make a huge difference, but it does give you the ability to have a little bit more functionality in the chat. It also allows you to come off mute if you ever wanted to do that, or even turn your camera on. Now, you're not obliged to participate in any way like that. It's just an option. Looks like a few of you have selected that, but that's completely up to you. Something else that you can do if you want to interact and have specific questions, the best way to make sure that those questions are addressed is to use the Q&A feature that Zoom provides. So if you look at your Zoom window, down at the bottom toolbar, slightly to the right-hand side, you'll see that there is a Q&A icon. If you click on that and type your question there, that question stays front and center in a separate panel for both Leanne and I to see, so to make sure that that question is not missed. Now, that might be about the course specifically, or you may have a greater course about CodeHS. We'll have a look at that periodically, and I can address them there. You're welcome to use the chat as well. However, the chat does often fill up with us dropping links, people potentially asking questions or sharing comments and things like that. And there's a possibility that the question that you ask may get pushed up and eaten in the chat, so to speak. So again, if you have something that you want answered specifically, I would suggest using the Q&A. Use the chat, it's up to you. But just know if we do miss your question or it kind of disappears with other things that are being posted, I would suggest reposting it, just to make sure that we actually grab it. Leanne and I will keep an eye on things, but in case we do kind of miss things, Q&A can't be missed. We will address things, but the chat sometimes just is a little bit all over the place. Oh, any questions about the interaction or anything like that? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so next thing that I'm going to ask all of you to do, and we'll drop this in the chat, is for you to sign up in for a free CodeHS account. If you are a returning CodeHS user, that's absolutely fine. But one of the things that we do offer as a CodeHS to sign up, it's a completely free account, and that gives you access to all of our middle school and high school curriculum, as well as some basic features on our platform that you can use. The cool thing about that is the course that I look at and every other course and material that I reference will be available to you on the platform. So please do sign up if you don't have an account. If you've worked with CodeHS before, I would suggest logging in, and there is a reason for that as well. And the way that you'll do that, Leanne dropped it in the chat, and it's in the slides as well, is to make sure that you go to codehs.com/sign up. We do have integrated support with using Google, so you can do that. My only suggestion would be to make sure that you sign up with your teacher-related or education institution-related email, simply because we will verify that you're a teacher. That gives you access to things like solutions, stuff that we wouldn't normally want students to get a hold of. So if you want to be verified correctly, you can change your email at a later stage. That's a bit of a mission, though. So I would suggest signing up with your teacher email or whatever education institution you might be part of. Having said that, you will also, in order to get a certificate of attendance, you will also need to be logged into our platform. So please make sure, go to codehs.com/sign up. And to get your certificate of attendance, which I'll talk about in about 10 seconds, just know that you need to be logged in as well. Can I ask, if you're trying to sign up and you are having a problem, let us know. We may only fix it at the end of the session, though, just depending on what the issue is. But again, codehs.com/sign up, and that gets you your free account and gives you access to every single one of our middle school and high school curriculum that you can then use as much as you need. Okay, it doesn't seem like anyone is having any concerns signing up. Leanne also preempted me. So the other thing that you're going to do once you've signed up, now make sure that you are signed in. So keep a browser window open or something like that similar. What you're going to do is click on the last or the most recent link that was dropped in the chat for you as well. And that's going to be our attendance link. Now, I'm going to actually demonstrate this for you because I want to make sure that you get your certificate of attendance if that's what you need. So what you'll do on that link, codehs.com, getting started -web design-attend. If you click on that, just have a look at my screen. If you've kind of moved my window to the side, you will see on your screen, log into CodeHS, you'll see our toolbar up at the top, and you will see a notification that says getting started teaching web design. Thanks for attending. Now, that means that you have checked the box that you are here, and you will be issued a certificate of attendance that will go to the email with which you registered for this webinar or workshop. Okay, so just bear that in mind. It will go to the email that you registered. Yes, that is correct, Catherine. So if you click on that link, I just want to make sure I understand you. Yes, it is a link that will then take you to our through our platform. It will acknowledge your attendance, and that's you'll get your certificate of attendance. Just make sure I answered that question correctly if that's what you're asking. But I hope it is. So once you've done that, as I mentioned, just check, because sometimes people ask us if they're on the platform with a teacher email, but they may have signed up with a separate email, maybe something personal. Just know that you'll get your attendance certificate that gets sent to the email with which you registered. Catherine, just let me know if I didn't answer your question correctly. But other than that, we can move on. All right, thanks, Crystal. Okay, so that link, Crystal did just repost it as well. It should be clickable. I'll try the one in the chat one more time. That seems to be working for me. Let's go back to my slide. So that's what we should see. And the link in the slide should work as well. That's the one that I've just clicked on. Catherine, if you are still having issues at the end, what we can do is we can have a look at the specific, because obviously I want to make sure that you get attendance, but just let me know if it doesn't fix itself. Is anyone else having problems with attendance? I do want to wait here until we figure this out, because I want to make sure that you get your acknowledgement of being here. Okay, great. Gina, thanks for letting us know. It seems that it is working now.
Possibility if it's not clickable is also if you're not logged into your CodeHS account.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. So just make sure you are logged in then as well. Okay, we'll keep posting those links periodically. They are in the slides too. The only other thing that I'm going to offer you, now this is not going to be required, but often teachers do ask. I am going to be demoing some, obviously our course to you, but there is a section that I have created that you are welcome to join as well. Now to do that, that link has just been posted in the chat. Leanne has dropped it there. It's not required for participation in this workshop. What will happen is that there are going to be some course customizations that I'll get to, things that I may move around and you might want access. Thanks, Catherine, for letting us know. There might be some access to things that you're wanting to look at, resources that you're wanting to keep and things like that. So often teachers ask to join the section that I create. It's not required. The link is also in the slides as well. If you want to join it later, I'm going to keep that active, but just know that that is something that you are optionally welcome to do. Okay, it's in the slides too. Folks, and lastly, I just want to tell you before we get going and stuck into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, if you are new to CodeHS, thanks for joining us. So essentially, we are an online comprehensive web-based platform that provides all kinds of coding solutions for the K-12 space. So things like curriculum. We have, and you again, as a person who's just signed up potentially for our for the first time, you have access to all of our middle school and high school curriculums. We also offer professional developments online and also in person for the various schools and districts that we work with. This is one of the PDs that we offer, one of the many. And then obviously our platform just has a host of resources as well for teachers to make sure that they can do their jobs as effectively as possible. So if there are any questions about that, do give us shout outs. And also our platform, things like, and this is a licensed or tiered platform as well. So some of these are available with our pro licenses only, but we have things like feedback systems, easy ways for students to submit their work, easy ways for you to see student work and what they're getting up to, and ways to track that. And then everything, the other cool thing, which I really like telling people about our platform, if you're not familiar to this, is everything is in our platform only. So there are no additional plugins or extra things that you might need to download. If you've got a computer that has a browser and has an internet connection, and that includes Chromebooks or forms of them, you can use every single thing that we have available. And that's what we really like doing. Both Leanne and I, and many of our other team members also, past teachers. So this is the space that we enjoy being in. It's a thing that we just, this is our thing. Cool. So let's talk about our course. As I mentioned, I just want to kind of go big picture overview of the course that we're going to be looking at. Think about important stuff, what you would want to start doing when you're teaching this course, and we'll kind of then progress as we go. So the web design course that we're looking at in our course, in our course catalog, is officially known as Web Design Picasso, named after the infamous artist. And the reason, and there's a number of different courses that we offer that I'll go through, but the one in focus for today is primarily a high school focused course. It's 140 contact hours essentially. So it's planned to take the time of an entire school year. Now, there's a few documents that we are going to look at just to kind of give you a bit of a heads up that are available on our website that you can access as well. But the kind of things that if I would be to be teaching a course initially, things that I would want to consider or think about when I'm first going to be going into this. So the links are being dropped in the chat. Thanks, Crystal, again. I appreciate that. And they're also all linked in our slides as well. But what I want to do is look at two documents that are available off our course catalog too. And I can actually show you how to access them if you're out of curiosity. So this is our platform. It's up on my screen. Yours may look a little bit different. I have a bunch of sections here. Those are essentially my class periods. If you haven't created those yet or you're new to our platform, don't worry about it. But what you will see on our platform, move to the left-hand side of the screen, our dashboard. If you click on that, that's our kind of home base. That's where you'll go and scroll down on the nav on the left-hand side of our screen, and you're wanting to go all the way down. There's a section called curriculum. And then under curriculum, you'll see something called our course catalog. If I click on that app, you'll see that our entire course catalog of everything that is available to you as a free user is there. And you can filter for our web design. You can see I was practicing this earlier. You can filter for our web design course, and this is where we get to. Now, the first document that I do want to look at is our syllabus. I'm just going to right click and open this in a new tab. And then you'll also notice that there is a Learn More button here, which is going to be helpful, which I'm going to open too. Now, the syllabus, let's just have a look at this document. We won't spend too much time going through it, but it's an important thing to consider. All of our courses have these utilities and tools, but it gives an overview of what to expect. Now, this is the type of thing that if you were to be teaching this course, you'll probably want to eventually edit, add your own classroom rules and expectations to the top. You might want to remove some of the CodeHS logos or the other things as well. But it's essentially an important document to read through as someone teaching this course, because it's going to give you a high-level set of expectations as to what your students and you should expect, your students should expect to learn and what you should expect to teach. So I'm just going to scroll down. The first, we're not going to read through all of this. It kind of goes through like I say, kind of broad course information. But the one thing that is important that you probably will want to know is how long each unit in particular takes. Now, the best place to find this out is, in fact, in our course syllabus. It's up on my screen now. I'll zoom in a little bit more so that you can see this. But each unit has with it a suggested breakdown in terms of timing, so that you can kind of predict how long or how many days, so to speak, you should expect to complete a particular unit in. So the first unit, and I'll talk about these more in detail. You can have a look at the syllabus right now, but just really think about this. So the first unit, getting started with what is the web, a very important, like, foundational understanding of what actually happens in a browser. That's expected to take about 1 week. And when we say 1 week, we're thinking 5 hours, assuming that each lesson, which we'll look at in slightly greater detail, takes about 45 minutes to an hour. So kind of like standard high school day, if there is still such a thing. Obviously, you can adapt this depending on where and how you're teaching this in your context, but that's the first thing that you'll find out, is how long each unit is expected to take. In my own experience, I always kind of budget a little bit extra time, particularly with how things are going, because it's always nice to finish a little bit early, and we do have resources to fill in kind of those early gaps, so to speak. But that's kind of that's what I would kind of think about here. So I just wanted to show you where that is. And again, if we go down to Unit 2, you'll see that Unit 2 is a little bit longer. This is expected to take about 3 weeks, 15 hours, that you can plan this accordingly. So folks, any questions about our syllabus? Again, I accessed that just to kind of go back one more time through our course catalog using our nav on the left-hand side of the screen, go all the way down under our curriculum course catalog, and I searched for our web design course. And again, the Picasso is the one we're specifically looking at because that is our year-long high school course and the major focus here. If you are noticing other things about like, web dev and, there's other famous artists being stuck in here, I'm about to answer that question. So hold those for a second. But does anyone have any questions about that? So we figured out where the overview documents are. Last one that I wanted to look at, if there are no questions, I'm just keeping an eye out over here, is we've looked at the syllabus. Okay, that's back up on my screen. The only other thing that I do want to look at is our overview. Now, this is an important, I suppose, document that is available to you. And again, to access that, course catalog, find the name of the course, and then the Learn More button that I showed you that's actually up on my screen over here. That's going to take you to our course overview. Now, the reason that I like the overview, if I scroll down, there's a bunch of information here, slightly less kind of like big picture stuff that you see in the syllabus, but more specific about the actual lessons and day-to-day stuff that you'll be going through. And this is what I mean. Explore button that I'm going to click over here, Explore Course. You'll notice that I get a series of drop downs. I'm just going to kind of squish them down a little bit so that you can see some of them on my screen. And what this does, this course overview now gives me a breakdown of each individual unit that you will be teaching. And what I would suggest, and what I would probably do here if this was a new course, is that prior to teaching every new unit, this is the place that I would want to go and essentially read through the explanations and overview so that I understand what is coming up in a particular unit. So let's just have a look. I'll do the second one, HTML structuring websites, because there's a little bit more kind of content there. So this would be our second unit. I'm going to drop this down. And then you'll notice here, if you look up on my screen, a series of numbers, 2.1, with a title and then kind of following that structure. Now, what that, intuitively, you can probably figure this out. This is our second unit, and each one of the point numbers represents the specific lesson of that unit. So 2.1 is the first lesson or first day of unit 2. 2.2 is the second lesson or the second day of unit 2 as well. Okay, and you can see if I scroll all the way down, we have a kind of 11 or so expected lessons in our second unit. If I want to look at this in more detail, and this is where I find it's really, really helpful. If I just pick, I know 2.2, structure of a HTML page, and then I'll open this and drop it further. There's a cool a kind of summary here. We get a lesson description. Okay, what is happening in this lesson in particular, but also we have listed 2 separate objectives. Now, all the objectives for the class will be listed here too. This is not just the case for this particular course, but every single one of our curriculum has a breakdown exactly like this. Often I find that the overview page, this is something that's really, really helpful. For instance, if you're expected to produce something like a lesson plan, not a lesson plan, excuse me, a unit plan. So one of those slightly more broad documents. This is very helpful. You know, when you have to give like a bit of a summary and maybe objectives, your administration needs to see this so that they know how things are progressing. You might want to share it with parents, and also just for your own preparation. Like, what are we doing over the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks? This is an easy document to read that I would keep bookmarked so that you can go through and figure out exactly where we're going. And again, that's the overview. So I'm going to close this up, and then you can see fairly easily our first unit, HTML. How much are we learning? We get to the point where we'll be able to do some styling within our HTML, and there's obviously a formative assessment at the end, but this is where we're going with things. Again, so big picture, what we've done is we've looked at the syllabus, and we've looked at the overview, which is available in our course catalog, and that's where you can kind of find this information. Folks, any questions about that? I'm going to dive into the units themselves a little bit more. That's my next explanation or next kind of thing, because you know, you'd have to read through this yourself. I'm going to do it for you today and go through some of the ins and outs. But does anyone have any questions about those two documents, the syllabus and the overview? Any questions, anything that's still lingering? And I'm not seeing anything just yet. Cool, cool, cool. So then let's do this. What I'm going to do is the next step. Let's go back to our slides for a second. I'm going to pin these to the side because we may come back to them. In fact, don't want to keep opening and closing things, but that's where we got to. So first of all, let's think about this in our big picture. We're going to go through all of the units that we're going to be looking at throughout the course of the school year. And if you're asking a question about, or maybe this is kind of floating in your head, Jonathan, I've got questions about shortening the content, because maybe you're only planning on using this for like a semester or even a quarter, or maybe you're a middle school teacher as well. I'm actually going to answer those questions because they're coming up too. So just a bit of a heads up. If that is floating around in your head, we can address those as well. So next thing I'm going to do is let's have a look at this. Unit 1 is a very brief introduction to understanding how the web actually communicates within your browser. It's something that's often looked over in a lot of curriculums that I've looked at with regards to web design, but it's so important that students understand when you're actually building web pages, you are communicating in a language of the internet in a kind of summarized or a big kind of picture overview. And to make sure that they understand that your browser actually is a working machine, one of the most important and powerful programs on your computer, like what actually happens when you put something into a web address that goes off to a server and returns some information to you. You know, that's a really important thing for students to be aware of, not in a super technical sense, but it will help make sense of when you're putting a web page together. Like, why do you use these funny tags? Why must you use CSS? Like, how's this working? Why do things change accordingly? And that's why we start that off. Again, it's about a week long, but a really, really important introduction to how the internet actually works in communication with your browser. Then we do some basic structuring with HTML. So you can kind of learn to code. I know some of you will say that, tell me that HTML is not technically coding. I still use that word anyways, just because I try to make things as simple as possible. So I'm going to say code, and if it irritates you, well, I apologize about that. But so you learn to code in HTML. At the start, you get to put things up on a browser, and your students will be super excited about that. Third unit, if HTML is the skeleton or structure of a web page, CSS is the clothing that you put on, how to style, how to change colors, how to change basic positions, a little bit about the CSS box model. If you're familiar with web design, you'll know what that is. Really just kind of learning how to put those Lego bricks together to make your web page be a little bit more appealing. After that, what we then do is you will have a chance for students to create their own web page, which will live out on the internet. CodeHS has an ability for students to host their own web page. I'm going to show you how that works, but also that they just have a little bit more ownership over their work, that they're engaging with the actual World Wide Web, and they get a chance to do that, which is super cool. We then move on with more advanced HTML and CSS, starting to think a little bit more about using correct tags and elements for accessibility, how to start doing some really, really cool stuff that exists with CSS, which is also a very, very powerful now official programming language, because you can work programmatically in CSS. But we'll kind of then move on to subsequent stories. So telling a project, I should say, telling a story, using a narrative to explain through design, which is really, really awesome. Then finally, towards the end of the year, this will be second semester-ish by now, most definitely. We then also have an opportunity, which I think just from someone who's worked as a software engineer in the industry, being able to use a CSS library and have a project from that is vital for students, particularly if you have any students in your class who are serious about becoming web engineers or web developers. Now, what Bootstrap is essentially a CSS library. So imagine someone actually just writes all your CSS classes for you. If you've never taught web design before, you may not be familiar with those terms. That's absolutely fine. You will be given that support as a teacher. But essentially, you get Bootstrap, which is just one of the more kind of popular CSS libraries, where all of the classes are essentially written for you, and you just are able to spend more time designing and working with the actual outputs in your user interface. It's super fun. Students will see the difference when they're able to kind of increase their speed at work, but also, again, if they're interested in becoming web designers or web developers, using a library by default is going to be their experience as a professional. So it's really important that they're exposed to that. Bootstrap is one of the more popular and older. Right, it is. Yeah, sorry, I'm also a huge Bootstrap and just kind of CSS library fan. And they also get a chance to produce that in a project. But it's really important that they do have exposure to this, just again, from a professional kind of standpoint as well. So also super excited about that. And it's cool. They actually just get to work on creating fun stuff as opposed to wondering, how do I create this class again? How do I change the font? Bootstrap does that for you. Lastly, that's what we finish up the year. Just really some good stuff here. Last part of the course is for students. They know how to use HTML. They know what CSS is. They can build web pages, but we really want to push them in the last part of the course to make sure that they're thinking critically about user interaction and user experience when engaging with web pages. Because anyone can actually build a web page fairly quickly. But if you think about it in the context, and again, professionally speaking, of trying to get a user to interact with a product or some kind of service, students must start to be thinking about what they're creating and how it enables a particular service or product to be utilized. Okay, whether their website is being used on a mobile device or a widescreen monitor, all of those things we're going to finish up. And it's really, that's good quality insightful and critical thinking when it comes to web design as well. And we'll finish up with a final project. So that's it. That's a year. Huge summary, but super cool course. And I really just like what the curriculum development team have built and what they keep updating. I think is a really, really beneficial introduction to web design. Folks, does anyone have any initial questions about the content? Feel free to ask. But again, anything about, do the students learn this or that? And if you're asking me if students learn JavaScript in this course, the answer is no. But we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But any other questions that come up? I don't see any. Don't see any. Okay. So having said,
I'm sorry, I have one
yes, Carla.
question. How close, so like this is Picasso, and I always used, my gosh, Dreamweaver. So how close is this to Dreamweaver? Or is it really close to it? It sounds like it.
So Carla, Dreamweaver, again, is a specific tool. I'm not super familiar with it, but I know it's kind of like Adobe's version of supporting and creating quick user interfaces. The reason that I would say it's probably not the same, it ultimately uses HTML and CSS. It's the same thing. It produces the same type of stuff. But Dreamweaver essentially is a program that makes it far quicker to create HTML and CSS in web pages. Now, our students are going to be working with the core languages themselves. So that's why I would say that they're different. This is not us using a kind of wrapped program in order to make students work really, really quickly, because Adobe Dreamweaver is a professional tool that a lot of designers use, and it's very cool. But we work with the core languages, and I think the purpose behind that really is just for students to make sure that they're engaging with the actual core content of web design. So that's the difference. They ultimately produce the same thing. And as far as I know, I would have to kind of follow up with this, is that Dreamweaver, it ultimately produces the same thing. But it is not.
It is a program. You're right. It is. And it's not, this is a language, whereas, yeah. So I got you.
Ultimately, yeah. So ultimately, they produce the same thing. Dreamweaver is super cool. But again, just I think with most school products, we would want our students engaging with the core functionality of actual languages. So that's where we're going. So they'll be working in
Awesome.
pure HTML, CSS as well. Cool, great
Okay.
question. Just for those of you who are kind of wondering about, maybe you're in a circumstance where you don't want a web design course for the entirety of a year, or you're like, how do you kind of figure that type of thing out? All right, Catherine, I appreciate that. Right, exactly. That's a great help and support as well. So I mentioned that a couple of the offerings that we have, these are all in our course catalog, which I showed you where that was. So Web Design Picasso, it's a year-long course based for high school. If you are interested, we also have a 1 semester course, which is essentially the same content, just kind of stripped down to cover only 6 months of your school year or half your school year. And that is our Monet Web Design Monet course. You can pick up the trend with artists here. And again, so that is kind of done for you. If you only want or only have the ability to teach for a semester, if your web design course, for instance, is part of like a bigger computer science offering or some other kind of setup that you have at your school, that is a possibility for you too as well. We have that available, so you don't have to edit the course yourself. You could, and our courses are fully customizable, but just know Web Design Monet, same core content, but it is only for a single semester. So we have that available, and you also have that available as a free user. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because we actually have a webinar workshop on this tomorrow for the same time. So if you want to learn more about our web development course, that is a difference, please sign up and we'd love to see you tomorrow. Web development is essentially the same content as our web design course, but in addition, it includes learning and utilizing JavaScript, which is our front-end browser-based programming language, super popular, super cool. So if you are in a set of circumstances where you might want to introduce your students to actual coding with a traditional-ish programming language in the browser, it's a very necessary skill as well. Our web development course includes that as well. If you want to know more about our web dev course, it's super cool. You have the access to that curriculum too. And we have an entire 90 minutes available to you tomorrow, same time. So please feel free to sign up for that as well. Last thing I want to touch on, in case you are a middle school teacher, 3 different options that we have available for you. You are welcome to use our high school curriculums and then kind of like edit them accordingly. But for middle school focus, we do have a web design Matisse course. That's a year long. Our web design Carlo course is a semester long only. And then we also have a web design Dali course as well, just because some of the requirements of our middle school teachers, depending on your school, is that you have very limited time over the school year. And that is our Dali course is a quarter. It's about 9 or 10 weeks in total, I think. So again, we have all those different offerings. They are available to you as a CodeHS user. Even if you've signed up for a free account, you have access to all of those curriculums that you can inject into the course that you create and then obviously edit that accordingly. I just want to kind of point out our course catalog may have additional web design courses on them too, that you kind of might see and say, oh, what about this one? If you see something different to the 6 courses that I've referenced today, those courses you can still use. I think like the web design, maybe Lovelace is one of them or something similar, but just know that those courses are essentially deprecated and aren't being updated less and less. So the 6 of them that I've shown you today, those are the ones that you are most recent updated, and those are essentially becoming our flagship courses as well. Does Matisse and Picasso cover the same content? The same core content, yes, Catherine. But the Matisse course, I think, is a little bit more it just progresses a little bit slower, just with the kind of concerns and specifics of our middle school expectations with those students. However, I also do know that there are teachers who use our high school courses and kind of, if they're a bit more comfortable and confident, what they do is they use their high school curriculums with upper middle school and just edit them accordingly depending on progress and needs as well. I hope that answers your question, but the core content is the same. Your students are not going to be missing out on any major ideas or concerns depending on your choices. Folks, so what we're going to do now is I will give us a break halfway through, depending where we're going. I have a slide for it, but I think we're going to go. What I want to do just before we kind of move on, when we have our break, we're going to go do a couple of other things. I actually just want to have a look at our platform. and a couple of cool things that we can look at. I'm going to go through a course kind of from a high level overview, show you a couple of things, and then in about 10 minutes or so, we'll take our break where you'll be able to stretch your legs or walk around the room that you're sitting in at home. Cool. So let's actually go to our platform. What I've got over here, again, open tab. If you are logged in, that's great. I've already created a course and added it to a section. The section essentially is my class period. So I'm not going to show you how to do that. Can you have a participation link? Yes, it's in our slides. But Pandora, I think I've seen you before in one of our workshops as well. So good to have you back. But Leanne will drop that for you in a moment. Just make sure you're logged into the platform as well. So again, from my screen, what I'm going to do is let's just go up our nav on the left-hand side. I'm going to click on the dashboard, which is our home base. And our sections, if you have created any of your class periods, they are over here. And what I'm going to do is, in fact, from my dashboard, go down under where you see the assignments section of our nav. I'm on the left-hand side, click where I see courses. And the course that I have then created is, I've just labeled it accordingly, our workshop, July 15th, getting started with web design. Once you have created a course, this is where it will live. Creating a course is a little bit outside the scope of this particular workshop, so I'm not going to go through that, but it's fairly straightforward in terms of getting that set up. Okay, now what you have here is our course with all of its content. The name you get to make because it's a course that you own. But if I scroll down on my screen, you'll be able to see the exact units that are from the curriculum all the way down to our final project over here and a pre-test as well. Okay. Now, the next thing that I do want to look at, just in case you're interested, because teachers often ask like, okay, so if I'm teaching this course, how do I see what my students see? I'm not going to go into this in great detail because I want to care more about you as a teacher and your preparation, but you will see at the top of my screen over here where you're able to switch to a student view. I'm going to click on this briefly just so that you can see what it looks like. And if I click on that switch to student view, this is essentially the outlook that our students will have once they've joined your, you've added them to a section or added them to a class period. You'll notice that all of the content is here. It's exactly the same as what you would expect. And the lesson breakdown and everything is here. So this is what your students see. And you're able to also work through the content as a student too. That automatically can happen. I just wanted to let you know that that's available to you. And if you ever wanted to see, like, what are my students saying? There it is. Okay, so what I want to do is let's go have a look at a lesson. We start off, as I mentioned, with and this is an optional pre-test that you could use just to get some formative data about your student experience. With our web design courses, there is no experience or expectation that your students have done any pre-work or have any coding experience, but just know that you can use that. Let's have a look at our actual second unit. So getting started with what is the web? I'm going to skip over that because I want to look at some more kind of like codey content. HTML structuring web pages. I'm going to scroll down and here is this unit and I'm going to click on this. And what you do is you'll get a drop down of every single lesson in that particular unit. Obviously, this will match our overview. So if I scroll down, you'll see we have everything up until the end of unit assessment. Okay. And our lessons follow a very particular format. So let's choose one. Structure of an HTML web page. So let's click on the second lesson. If I click on that, you'll see that there is a drop-down menu that appears. Now, while things change depending on the actual lesson, what you'll see here is all of the different activities and exercises that you and your students will go through on a particular lesson. Things that are always going to be the same, and this is for every single course that we offer, every single curriculum that you can use, is that there's always going to be, if you have a look at the top of my page, let me zoom in a little bit more, hopefully that's not too squished, you'll see that we have an introduction or content video about the specific skill or content that students will be learning. And again, this is always going to be a video. It's essentially one of our curriculum development team members talking through a set of slides, and they go through the content of the lesson. So if you're new to teaching this course and you're new to web development or web design, I should say, in general, watching this video is going to be super helpful. And this is going to be the content that you and your students will need to have a look at. In addition to that, every lesson has with it what we call a check for understanding. Now, it is in the format of a quiz, but most of the teachers that we work with don't use this as a kind of formal measure of student learning, not a traditional understanding of a quiz, but rather for a check for understanding, a formative way to gauge, get some data from your class that you can see how your students are progressing. Okay, so that's why we highlight this as a check for understanding. You can utilize it in any way you want. And what it will do is have a couple of questions or a few questions based on the content of the video. We'll talk a little bit more about this kind of towards the end of this workshop, but check for understanding. You can use it as an individual exercise. You can get students to do it in pairs. You could do it as a whole group panel or a whole class panel, depending on how you want to structure things. But it's just a chance for you to gain a little bit of data based on the content of that day. We also then will always have a series of example exercises. Now, an example is code that is completed, that there's nothing that students need to add or change about it, but rather a chance for students and you to look at the content from the video being applied correctly. You can also utilize them in any ways you want. Some teachers use them for think alouds, kind of showing students and talking through the actual process so that they have that engagement. Students can look at them as well, but really just a set of code blocks that show the content working correctly. So in this case, the HTML page structured appropriately. And then lastly, what we also have is exercises. Now, these are actual tasks that students are expected to complete that can be graded by and will be graded by default. Okay, we have auto graders that will look at this for you. So you just students just need to submit it. You can also have a chance to look at this as well. And students can complete these, or you can complete them with you as well. So again, to kind of summarize, every single lesson has a similar structure. We have a content video, some kind of check for understanding, examples, and then exercises as well. Really to make sure that that your students have as much kind of varied exposure to the content too. And also we structure this to make sure that you as a teacher, if you are really familiar with web design, you've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years, or if you're teaching this course for the first time coming August and you're like, what am I supposed to know? Really, we try and cater to all of those needs in what we provide. Folks, any questions, concerns, issues, worries, asks about the actual structure of our lessons? We're going to look at some, actually have a look at our interface in a moment. But I did promise you that we'll have a short break because I've been talking for a tremendous amount of time. I hope it's been interesting. Let's do this. It's now 17 minutes past the hour where I am. Let's have a short 5-minute break. So at 23, I'll give you 5.5 minutes. 20, oh, there, we've actually gone to 18 now. So let's get 23 minutes past the hour. If I can ask you, that's when I'm going to progress. So do what you want, go to the restroom, walk around your room, go grab a drink of water or some coffee. If you want to ask questions, obviously I'm going to stay here. But if you have any questions, feel free to do that. Otherwise, get up, walk around, and at 23.5 minutes past the hour, we'll continue with looking at a couple of other things. If you do have questions, or if there was a question that I missed. So we're on break now. We're on break. I have a break slide. I just can't remember where it is. Let me see if I can find it. I can't find it. I'm just going to leave this kind of slide up. But so we're on break now for the next few minutes. Questions or something missed in the chat, or if we didn't answer, please let us know. Crystal, I appreciate you helping us drop the links as well. Always appreciate it. And any other questions, feel free to answer them. Otherwise, we're taking a break. Kristen, I'm going to answer this question live, and in fact, I'll answer it next. Yes, and I would recommend that you do work ahead with your students. But yes, you do have and I'll actually show you when everyone is back here, I will actually demo that for you, and we'll have a look at the IDE. You automatically are able to you're automatically able to do this, and in fact, you can join as a student too. There's a couple of ways that you can do that, but yes. Right, so the section is the class period if it's asking you. So Catherine, I'll just show you up on my screen right now and to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. Kristen, yeah, so we will answer that question too. So let's just go back to our slides quickly and make sure that I click on the same link. So I'm going to go back quickly to grab everything that I need. Let's couple more over. Oops. So this is the section, Leanne, you are way faster at me than this. Thank you for that. So what you'll see up on my screen over here, Catherine, is correct. So joining the section, you are joining that class that will give you access to the course that I'm using. It's not super required because, again, I made you some customization just so that you have access to it. But again, you're joining as essentially a teacher student for this course so that you can see the stuff that we're doing. So what you can do is just join section over here, and then that should include it too. I've just clicked on the button, and then you will now have joined as a student essentially. So you're participating as a student as well. You won't have access to actually edit the course itself. I haven't given you that access. You can do that so with like CodeHS so that you can both edit the same course that you've used at the same time. But this is just a chance for you to if you need the code itself, it's actually the last set of digits, the 1DF90 at the end of that URL. Leanne, again, you're the Jedi Master. I'm your Padawan today. I appreciate you. Catherine, just let us know if that answers your question, folks. We've got about another minute before we get going. Had two very, very good questions. I'm just going to go back to my teacher view. And then we'll have a chance to actually look at how to work through an example of one of the courses too. Folks, it is 23 minutes past the hour, so I do want to get going because I want to try and get through as much as we can. Also, our slides there is some content about not customizing, but things to consider about the different parts of our lessons that I have decided to skip over just because of timing. You have those available in the slides, so feel free to look at them as a resource, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to move ahead. I want to answer two things. One, a very good question came up about how do we work through the content ahead of our students to make sure that we're preparing and going through things. I'm going to show you how to do that now. And then afterwards, we'll have a look at how we set up our own web pages through our platform, which is part of the curriculum course itself, but we will want to do those things. So there are a number of ways to do this, but the best way that I would do this, answering the question of how do I go through the content or look ahead to see what my students are going to be doing? How can I do it first? So what I'm going to do, a great question. And what I'm going to do is just show you back to remind you where we are, our courses and assignments. I've now created a course. Here is all the content, and I'm looking at this as a teacher. We know that there is a student view. But one of the things that I often do when I'm working through things, let's go down to our HTML structure, which is our second unit when we start actually coding in HTML. I'm going to click on this drop down, and you'll notice that our first lesson, Introduction to HTML. I'll just use this. Click on the lesson name itself, and you see all the content. Now, the easiest thing to do to make sure, and maybe this is just my preference, but to make sure that I'm keeping up to date and planning effectively with the different tasks, you'll see at my assignment section here, looking at the lesson itself with all of the different stuff we do in a day, there are a bunch of options on our interface here on the right-hand side. Now you'll notice that there is this blue icon with a little eye in it. And that is essentially, and if you hover over it, you might see it's really, really small. This is a preview of what the task is going to be. I'm going to go down to the exercise down over here because this is the one that we'd want to practice. And this is say hello, where the students are just going to put some HTML on the page. And I'm going to click the preview icon here. Once I do that, a new window opens up. And folks, now I'm actually looking at the lesson, or the task, I should say, from a student point of view. There are other ways to do this on our platform. This is the easiest one, and it's the only one that I'm going to show you. You can also join a section using the join code. There's a whole bunch of other ways. Our platform is comprehensive, but this is where I can actually read the explanation. This is what your students see. So if you haven't seen a lesson before, this is it. And we get an explanation of what the students need to do. I get confirmation that this is an exercise, and I also have the default points assignment for our auto grader, which is out of 5 points, which is pretty standard at default. Okay. Get started. And this is what our interface actually looks like. A couple of things that you can see here. Our course, if you are familiar with any kind of block-based programming language, our introduction to web design offers that as a setting. Now you can turn that off in the overall course settings if you want to, but it is something that I like to keep on, particularly for students who are new to programming. And it's just a way for students, and if you're unfamiliar with block-based coding, basically all of the different code blocks that you can use are available to you in a menu on the left-hand side over here, and you just pull them over accordingly to where they need to go. Okay, students don't have to worry about typos and things like that. It's a little bit more user-friendly. However, you can turn that off for the course as a whole, or you also may notice over here that I have this option that says switch to code view. If you want your students to be able to choose, which is just really a nice point of entry, over here I click on switch to code view, and then I go back to my traditional HTML. You may want your students to do that, switch to block view, and I can go back. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at block view for the moment. We'll go back and forth. We'll see how things work. And then what happens over here, and this is how I would then practice working through the code first before my students using the preview icon. One of the things you may have actually seen over here is that we have our IDE, the place where students code is in the middle of our screen. That's where the magic happens. Any additional documents always are going to be on the left-hand side over here. And I also then have our outputs on the right. This always follows the same model where I can see what my actual code is going to produce. I also then have an ability looking at this toolbar on the right-hand side block to test cases. Students will be able to see that to make sure that their code is correct and passing. They can reread their assignments, like what are they supposed to do. These teacher options over here, they will obviously not see. Documentation for HTML. This can also be turned off, but I would recommend, as just my own teaching experience and also someone who's worked a little bit in the engineering industry, having students read documentation is a really important practice because they are going to do lots of it. If any of you have worked as any capacity as some kind of engineer or developer, you'll know that that's the truth. And having this available to them is there. But if you wanted to turn that off in your course settings, you're able to turn that off as well in case you have questions about that. The interface for grading, where you can also where you can grade and also then submit student feedback if needs be. You can also update this as needed. And then lastly, there's a set of options over here under the More tab, all the way to the right-hand side of my screen. If you click that, there are a couple of things that I want to look at here. The most important thing, though, for those of you new to coding, and something I always use quite often, is as a teacher, you have the solution available to you right here. So if I click on that, you can see what the answer is supposed to be. So you don't have to kind of work this out. You'll have that available and the students don't. Something else, I actually was working on this earlier because I like to practice things. You may notice that my code actually, when I got here, had saved already. And if I run it, I'm doing the correct thing. And if I check my code, you can see this is what the output looks like. Okay, so you can see that I'm passing all of my tests and I can submit and continue. So that's your student experience in a nutshell. If I wanted to reset this, what I could do is to use my option over here, More, click down. If I go all the way down to the bottom of my screen, history, sorry, it's not at the bottom, it's all the way at the top. I thought it was at the bottom. I'm also able to see timestamps of student progress, things like that. So you can kind of see, if I wanted to reset the code, I can do that. Just click reset over here. So all these tools are available to you. You'll have to learn them and become more familiar with them. But really just the idea that we provide teachers with every single thing that you need while you're working through the content. It's your, yourself too. There was one other thing that I did want to show you here. Oh, conversations that you can use as well. Your students are able to send you in-platform messages about various content that they're engaging with under this conversation tab, where they can type a response. You can see the answer. You'll be alerted to this in a little menu option at the top of your screen, hovering over, and then be able to respond so that you can see the exact concern on the same exercise or task that they're working on, which is also just a nice tool as well. Cool. So I just wanted to go and make sure, Kristen, I know it was your question or anyone else. So this is how I would do it. I'll go through this one more time. So I can close this up, save and continue. I'm working through this as a student now, because as a teacher, you are able to join a course and a section like this. I'll close it down, but again, just to kind of summarize any exercise or task that you're working on, what you'll do is go up to that task, click on the preview icon, and you will get your window that opens up and allows you to work through things. And that's how our courses work. So super cool, hopefully super intuitive and super easy to access, and gives you a chance to work through things, hopefully before your students do. Maybe at the same time, depending, because we obviously know teachers are given so much time in the world to be able to plan for things, but just know that you have all of these available to you. Right. Great. Folks, if there are no other questions about, and this is what the lessons look like, we'll have a chance to kind of think about some other things. But what I want to do next is actually look at how students, let's go back to my slides for a second. One of the other cool things is that if students are doing web design, then we want them to actually be able to build web pages that exist on the internet. Now, this is integrated into the actual curriculum itself. So it's not something that you would have to create as an additional resource, but I just wanted to give you a heads up as to where this lives, because it's super cool. It's pretty standard now with most web-based platforms when you're doing any kind of learning to coding, but that's actually how our CodeHS URLs and domains work so that students can have their own stuff. So what I'm going to do is go back to our platform. Let's just close a couple of things up so that it's easy, that we're just being as clear as crystal with our navigation. And I'm going to scroll all the way up, just make sure that let me zoom out slightly as well. I feel like we're squished in here a little bit. And I'm going to close those other courses down too. So let's go back to our dashboard. Okay, so again, that's our home base. I'm just going to use our nav on the left-hand side of the screen, go back up to dashboard, click that a few times. And as mentioned, if you have sections that you've created, your class periods, your rostered students, period 1, 3, 7, whatever, this is where they would live. Now, the place that I want to show you is one of the other cool things that we utilize a lot in various capacities, and that's our kind of open sandbox coding space that all students have access to, where they can create their own stuff, but you are also, as a teacher, able to view what your students create there as well. So you can use it in whatever capacity you want. So you might see it floating at the top of my screen. From my dashboard, if I go to the toolbar at the top, you'll see that there's a word that says sandbox, and I'm going to click on that. Now, you'll see over here, Jonathan Jacker's sandbox, your student will see their name. You're also able to access this content and any cool programs that your students want outside of their immediate exercises will live here. Okay, and this is where you can create them. And you also, this is not limited to web design or HTML or CSS. This is all of the different programming languages and interfaces that we have on our platform. So super cool. And students also share this across the different courses and sections that they're in. It's part of their account that they will have, which is super cool. And they also keep hold of this as well, so they can start to build their own portfolio. You'll probably notice that there is this big green button over here that says Edit Homepage. You will not have to access this in the same way when you're doing the course itself. As I said, it's integrated, so don't worry about like, oh, where, how am I going to get my students to do this? But I just want to show you how cool this is. I think it's cool. Edit Homepage, I'm going to click on that. And what happens is we're now at an instance of our IDE, or the place that we code, and you can see that I've already added some HTML over here. This is as good as it gets for today, so don't expect anything super fancy. But what I've done is I've got 2 lines of HTML, hello world, and my name is Jonathan. And then I now have my outputs over here in the window. So pretty standard, and most of the other things that I need over here are existing. Students are able to build out their files. So eventually they will be able to add additional CSS files. And even if they get it's outside of the scope of this course, but they can add JavaScript as well. And then what happens is I'm going to click on this little arrow pointing out, which is going to create a new window for us. And I'm going to click on that over there. And you can see I get my own web page, which again over here is hello world. My name is Jonathan. This is on the internet. I do have a little bit of a wonky IDE over here. Now that is customizable according to your student's username. So what happens is eventually their web address will be their username, .codehs.me.me. And they are then able to share that. This is on the internet for everyone else to access, and is also part of the actual curriculum as well. So super cool. Very important that students are not just designing web pages, but also being able to actually share them with people. And this is as powerful as it gets. So they could create really, really interactive, very cool user experiences and user interfaces from their own personal web page. And again, this is my URL over here, jjacket, that's my username, and .codehs.me, and I can share that with anyone. And this can be customized as well. I still think it can. And the way that you would do that, Leanne, I'm not sure if you know at the top of your head, we're still able to customize usernames, I think.
Yes, you from the main page back in the sandbox. So there are times actually that when the students initially make their websites for the very first time, it will actually prompt them to change the username. That's
Correct.
on the slides. But then after that, I know there's a way to do it. I just don't remember.
So
How?
yeah, it's pretty.
find
I also
out.
think that there is a way to go through your actual account settings, and you can change your username there. And I think that that's a way to do it. I'll get back to you on that. We won't spend too much time going through that, but just know that you can customize your URL, and students can do that, which is super cool. So they can really just take ownership of the work that they're doing. And as mentioned, the web page that they create is not limited in any regard. They can do some really, really cool things with all the tools that they create, and that's all done here for them. Folks, any questions about that? Any concerns? Anything else that you might have questions about? Great. And Leanne, thanks for following up on that. If there are no questions, I do want to do a couple of other things. We've still got a bit of time. I want to make sure that we have a look at how to do some course customization. That's really, really important too. And then we can also have a chance to go through some of the other lessons as well, which also just can be really interesting to see. So the first thing though, let's go back to our course. I'm just going to close. Let's go back to my homepage. So if I'm in a situation over here when I want to get back to my base, I'm just going to click on the little CodeHS icon in the top left-hand corner. I can do that too. And then I'm back here where everything is. Now let's go back to the course. And I just want to show you a couple of other things that we can do with regards to course customization. Doesn't look like there are any questions or concerns. And under courses, again, so using my nav on the left-hand side, let's go down to where I have courses. Let's click on that. And all of the courses that you have created from any of our curriculum will be available here. I'm going to scroll all the way down and find the particular July 15 getting started with web design course, and I'm going to click on that. So we're back where we were. I want to show you a couple of other cool things with regards to course setup that we won't go into great detail, but stuff you will probably want to do at the start of the year. So if you have a look at our contents, going to the nav on the left-hand side, scrolling down under assignments, you'll notice here that there is an option that says configure. Now that is going to help you tweak your course specifically for the requirements of your class or for your student population. I'm going to click on that configure. And then you'll just see that appears a couple of cool things that are very, very helpful in terms of making sure that you're in control of what your students are doing. At the top of my screen, moving across from left to right, you'll see that there are a bunch of options here in our toolbar that now relates to all of the sections of this particular course. Firstly, I just want to show you, I mentioned earlier that you can turn on and off the block text settings or the block-based coding. If you look at the options at the top of my screen over here, block text setting, I'm going to click on that. And there is an option for you to turn off per unit or even lesson, so you can customize this, the block-based coding. Again, students are able to turn it off by themselves inside our IDE. I showed you where that option was, but that is something, for instance, that you can do here. Something else that I do want to kind of go across as well. Again, menu options at the top is the copy and paste settings. This is something that teachers often ask about if they are concerned with students, if there are copy and pasting issues, maybe just with regards to a lack of academic integrity. You are able to turn that off per lesson or per task or even per unit. That's something that I didn't really do because copying and pasting, to be honest, is a part of coding. It happens all the time. I tell you some stories, but the point is that if there is a student in particular, you can customize this per student as well. If there are concerns with just them, their academic integrity, just know copying and pasting is something that you have control over. In addition to that configuration, something else that you're going to want to think about, I'm going to click on quiz settings 2. That's the option that's right on the left-hand side here. Right, so sorry, these are pro features as well. Thanks, Leanne, for catching that. I'll just go over them very, very briefly because I know that some of you might be using the platform for the first time and won't have access to them. But if you are a pro user, you are able to also control how your students interact with quizzes too. And then let's just go back all the way to our access controls. And what you're able to do here is also give your students access and availability to your various units and lessons and activities. So something to just be aware of. You know, in your class, if you do have students who are, you're concerned about students racing ahead through the content or not moving through at a particular pace, you are also able to control the access that they have to specific degrees, depending on how they progress too. Any questions about your content or, sorry, control of anything? Otherwise, I want to go back and have a look at a couple of other ways to customize your course, which is really important too. Right, so what I'm going to do is scroll down. I'm going to go back to our course through our assignments. Again, nav on the left-hand side. It's brand new, by the way. So if you are a previous CodeHS user and this looks a bit different to you, welcome to a wonderful upgrade. Let's click on courses again. And I'm going to scroll down. Let's find the correct course, which is July 15. Let's click on that. Now, something I did mention, I'll kind of show you just a couple of other examples that we can follow here, is our course customization. Now, basically, I do want to just remind you that when you create a course as a CodeHS teacher, you take one of our curriculum and you use it to create a course, but you then ultimately own that course completely and can customize it to whatever way you want. Now, there are very cool things that you can do. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. I'm at the course at an assignment view. And I'm going to scroll down and let's go have a look at our HTML unit that we were looking at earlier. Introduction to HTML. Let's just have a look at the first lesson, perhaps. And what you'll notice is that at our set course tasks and assignments, you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of menu options on the right-hand side. Let's say that we wanted to use our check for understanding as an exit ticket. Now you could leave it there and just tell students to do it at a particular time, but what you might want to do is actually move it within the structure of the course that you have as well. Now, because you own this course, what you can do is if you move to the side of the right-hand side of the interface over here, you'll see that there are 3 dots. Open that up. And notice that, for instance, you have an option to move things around. So I'm just going to click move down until our check for understanding is the last part of, or the last task that you see here. Okay, which is really, really cool. So first of all, about basic movements, you can move things around in a particular set or in a set of activities within a lesson. So that's super cool. I will show you how to add stuff as well, but something that you might want to do, it's probably not with our introduction, but say, for instance, let's go back here and under our free test. This is kind of existing here by itself, some formative data. And if you wanted to move this to another unit, you can also move this entire lesson as well. Same thing. So from my interface over here, entire lesson, I'm going to go to the right-hand side of my screen, 3 dots. I'm going to click here and go down to where it says move to module or unit. We use that synonymously on our platform. And I can then move this, let's say, to the getting started. So the second unit or module that exists. And I can then move that. Okay, web design unit is now empty because there's nothing there. But if I go and have a look at our actual interface or our actual second unit, you can see that the web design pretest is down here. It always gets stuck on the end. And then what I can do is I can just move this up accordingly. And let's say that I wanted to move it right to the top. So again, it's just a really important part of our platform is that it's important that you feel that you're able to customize our course completely to your needs. I'll have a look at this as well. Something that you might want to consider is we've got this kind of introduction unit. We'll kind of just use this because it's available for us. If we're wanting to add units or modules, you can totally do that too. A lot of teachers that work with us, they often have a kind of initial admin unit that contains their syllabus, a course overview, and maybe some class documents. That's available to you on the side of the screen over here. If I move my cursor, you'll see right at the top of my course. I've scrolled all the way up now, above all of the different units and modules that you see, all the way over to where it says add. I can add a particular module. I'm just going to call this test 1. You would call it whatever you want. So it could be like admin module or admin. If I create that, it is going to get stuck on the bottom of all of your content here. So the easiest way to move this up is to scroll. We have an edit option at the top. Okay, forgive me, let me zoom out a little bit so we're not getting too all over the place. And what I can do is actually now that new unit that I've just created, I'm able to go all the way down, grab it, and drag it up to the top of my screen. Oh, where did it go? It stayed at the bottom. Sorry, I didn't do that too well. Let's try one more time. That's where you're able to drag it. It's the second time I've dropped. But anyways, let's just move it up once so you can, I'm trying to make sure, there we go. It's above our final project now, so it can be moved. And then once you're done, what you can do is just make sure that we turn that off there. So folks, again, just to kind of summarize what you can do with our particular course that you've created, we've looked at some of the content, we've looked at the way that our lessons are structured, and then what we've done is started to have a look a little bit in terms of the ways that you can customize our different content for the different needs of your class. So just to kind of summarize, to make sure I go through everything that is required, because I know that we are moving towards the end of our webinar, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions. Also, I'm going to ask you to do a workshop survey as well. What we'll do is just kind of go through things. So I mentioned that you can reorder modules. You have access to these slides as well. So just to make sure that you can see, again, top of our assignments, you move to the right-hand side, that edit button allows you to move our assignments around, and then you can drag and drop them and order things around as needed. You can also remove assignments too. If you find that there are too many things, you're worried students, you don't want them to access things at all and you're not planning on using them, feel free to do that as well. You can also add assignment content as I showed you. You just find a particular unit that you're wanting to add to, and there's always an add assignment button, of which there can be multiple different options that you might want to include. Any other questions, any other concerns? And again, these are all included in the slides that you see. Last thing I want to mention is that you're also able to add content from other courses. I'm not going to demonstrate that for you because it is just requiring creating a new course, taking content and moving it to subsequent courses, but you can do that as well. So for instance, we often have we often have teachers maybe at the end of the year, they're needing additional content for some students to differentiate up or down. That is also completely possible in our platform. And the reason that we do that is it's important that we have a way to make sure that our courses are completely customizable and owned by you, so that you can make sure that they meet the needs of your class. Any other questions or concerns before we start to finish up? Great. Excellent. Well then, folks, if there are questions, we still have a little bit of time, but there are a couple of things that I'm going to ask of you as well. If you are clicking around and questions do come up, that's great. I just want to kind of go through, as we start to reach the end of our webinar, our workshop today, a couple of other things that you might be interested in as well. I mentioned that yesterday, it's not, actually, I think I do have a slide that will come up. But if you feel like involving yourself more in the CodeHS community, we have a number of options and would love you to become more involved depending on what your needs are and the time you have available. So things like we do have the option of becoming a CodeHS certified educator. You can also earn micro credentials. We also have various social media groups as well that are super active, particularly the one on Facebook. I know that our high school, middle school Facebook group is super active as well. And there's a lot of teachers sharing some really good resource and learnings and wisdom. So please, if you are on that platform, and we would love to have you join us so that you can add to the wisdom of that group as well. The other thing, feel free to hang around if you have any specific questions about any of these. Also, all of the information is available on our webpage as well. Now, from the bottom of my heart, I finished a little bit early on purpose. Leanne has just dropped in the chat our workshop survey, and I'm going to ask all of you a huge favor before you leave today and before we finish up. I'm going to ask you to take 3 minutes from this webinar to go through our webinar survey to give us feedback about the content that you've heard, the cool things that maybe you didn't hear enough about, or improvements that we could make. Just because the feedback that you give is a gift. It's a way for us to know that we're doing the right type of thing, or ways for us to get better. So can I ask every single person, click on that link right now, and please spend the next 2 to 3 minutes giving us feedback in our survey. I would love to get 100% feedback from this this presentation, just because that means that everyone's opinion has been heard. So you're doing your survey now, and there's a couple of other things that I do want to show you before we finish up. I would love to say that you're not allowed to leave until you do the survey. I couldn't do that anyways. But it's just really, really helpful to get feedback. All feedback is a gift. All feedback is a gift. So while you do your survey, I'm going to try not to irritate you too much. Lastly, please remember, if there were any issues with attendance, just kind of hang around and let us know. But you've logged into the platform, and you will get, by clicking on this link, you will get your certificate of attendance that will be emailed to the email address with which you registered for this professional development. And then lastly, while you're filling out your survey, you're still doing that for me. We would love you to participate with more free webinars and workshops that we have throughout the summer. Tomorrow, I mentioned there's one specifically on web development. Sign up. It's going to be super cool. Content is going to be very similar, but if you are interested in the additional stuff that we do with JavaScript, a great chance for you to come and ask some questions to Leanne. Leanne, are you the person doing it? I can't. Oh, Leanne is going to be with you, so you'll get some good just be able to like compare the two, even if you're making a decision, like which one am I going to do, web design or web development. We've got some cool stuff. CodeHS also rolled out its AI offerings over the summer. We have an entire web page devoted to that, but also throughout the summer, we have a whole bunch of different AI-focused webinars too. And then on the 16th, again, also tomorrow, we have one specifically focused on the new courses that we've launched, so we'd love to have you. And then for the remainder of the summer, we have all of this cool content again listed in the slides, but you can go to CodeHS/free PD and get some more information. And again, we'd love to have you participate as much as you are able during your summer. And those will go all the way through until the fall. Last shout out that I'm going to give, because I know that all of you want to sign. And there was one person talking about game design. Catherine, I think it may have been you. Anyways, so CodeHS has just released a new version of our game development in Unity course. There is a webinar happening at the end of the summer as well about that. Super cool. It might be something to look into as well. And all of you will have access to that curriculum as CodeHS users, free or pro. Lastly, if you do have any questions about bringing CodeHS to your school, if this has kind of piqued your interest, feel free to go to codehs.com/learn more. You'll be put in contact with one of our account executives. They'll reach out and have a conversation. It's no obligation. They just kind of might ask you about your needs and see if there's, if that conversation may continue or not. But we would love to have you investigate that and work with us creating our cool platform. Folks, I have finished 7 minutes early. So you're going to do your workshop survey. I really appreciate the time that you're going to be taking to do that. And yeah, I hope that this was super helpful in terms of stuff for next, as you set up for the start of your school year. Still got a summer break, so hopefully you get to take a lot of that and still relax and things. But all the best for the school year coming up if you're teaching this class. Please keep interacting with us. We'd love to, as I said, you finished your workshop survey, obviously, because we asked you to do that. But yeah, attend more webinars, interact with us. We'd love to get some feedback. And thank you for taking time out of your summer, which is precious, that you've joined us for this hour and a half. And I really appreciate you here. We'll hang on for the next 6 minutes or so, just so if there are questions or anything else that you want to follow up with, feel free to stay and hang around. Otherwise, once you finish your workshop survey, folks, have a wonderful rest of your summer. If we see you again, super excited. If not, all the best for the upcoming school year, and hopefully we'll have a chance to interact with you in the future.